Welcome back. You're listening to The Real Story here on AM 560. And I want to thank George, my producer, for putting this show together on Memorial Day weekend. We're going to turn now and have a longer discussion for the rest of the time frame with the Edgar County Watchdogs. Their work is so important, and it really forces a longer conversation to understand what's going on. So welcome, John and Kirk. Thanks for joining me on The Real Story tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, and the reason that I wanted to take a little bit of a longer time frame with you tonight is because I think that this discussion of the Regional Office of Education in Will County and what has been going on with their Professional Development Alliance, an alliance that they had between Will, Kendall, and Grundy counties, I think the corruption that has been uncovered at this point is so egregious that everybody in the entire state needs to understand it, and especially because the politicians are ignoring it. From the local politicians to your state politicians, nobody is talking about this case except you and me. And fortunately, Dr. Lisa Caparelli-Ruff, who, when she was first elected to the position of Superintendent of Will County Regional Office of Education, she identified irregularities in the financial reporting of the Professional Development Alliance, and then she undertook to have that all investigated. And so she hired a prescient on November 1st of 2023 to investigate those irregularities and provide a report of the findings. The findings are really damning. And I think that's what I want you guys, since you have been covering this from the get-go, I really want you to go down into some detail. First, give us some background about what they were doing, and then we'll get into what the report found out.
Okay. I can start with the background, and Kirk can finish up with the final report that we published. Back in September, October of 2023, we learned about this issue, and what we found were intergovernmental agreements between Will and Grundy Kendall County ROEs that established this Professional Development Alliance. And the Professional Development Alliance then entered into contracts with Vista Learning. But back in '96, the Professional Development Alliance passed a resolution authorizing all of their employees to participate in IMRF with a 1,000-hour annual work requirement. Now, that's a key point in this, 1,000-hour annual work requirement as a PDA employee. Then they hired people, entered into a contract with Vista Learning, which is a private not-for-profit corporation that owns software called Ives, which is a teacher evaluation software that they sell, I know they sell it in several states and maybe more than that now to different public schools. And in the contract with Vista Learning, the PDA placed themselves in the subordinate position of working for the private company. So their employees worked for, Vista Learning didn't work for the PDA. The PDA worked for Vista Learning. So you got government.
That's ass backward.
Yep.
Yes, it is. So you got government employees, obviously working for a private company, but also claiming all that time working for the private company as part of their 1,000-hour annual work requirement for IMRF.
Okay, John, who did these employees answer to? Did they answer to the alliance between the official Grundy, Will, and Kendall County's ROE offices, or did they answer to Vista, the private contractor?
Well, they were officially and technically employees of the Professional Development Alliance, which is a government entity. They essentially answered through this contract to Vista Learning. Okay. And it was all the same people. Sean Walsh was on the board of Vista. He was a Will County Regional Superintendent and the president of Vista Learning. Chris Mahotko was the same thing. Jay Linksman was the executive director of the Professional Development Alliance and director of Vista Learning. So it's all the same people in both the government entity and the private entity.
So wait here, because I think the details matter, which is why we're stopping and going into some of these details. Those three folks that you mentioned, they are government employees, yet they have prominent roles with Vista Learning. Now, did they create Vista? When did they join Vista? Was it before or after the Alliance hired them?
Vista Learning has been around for a few years, but the officers or directors of the nonprofit were the elected regional superintendents and a principal from one of the high school districts. Those are the officers of that private company.
So did those officers, though, those public officers, did they create Vista Learning, or did they just get hired by Vista Learning in those positions as they were also doing their job as government employees?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm sure we have the record somewhere, but I don't know off the top of my head.
But regardless, either they created Vista Learning or they had prominent positions with Vista Learning whilst also holding their government official offices.
Right. And their 2017 contract named the PDA as an independent contractor for Vista Learning, and it had a 60-day automatic evergreen renewing provisions, which are illegal in Illinois. The PDA agrees to provide the government workers to work for Vista Learning. They've also agreed to provide technical administrative services to Vista Learning, administrative and payroll services to Vista Learning, provide all supplies, licenses, and consulting services to Vista Learning, provide the office space, utilities, maintenance, and insurance for the office space to Vista Learning, and they granted Vista Learning to perform other work using the government employees as long as it didn't interfere with the work performed for Vista Learning. Well, the PDA was granted permission from Vista Learning to do other work.
How can such a contract even be conceived?
Hey, the directors they're all government elected officials or employees and directors of the private corporation. Of course they can conceive something to benefit the private corporation. How can a private corporation grant the government permission to do things? And of course there were non-disclosure agreements. They had to destroy records on demand of Vista Learning, which violates FOIA and the Public Records Act. And they granted all the intellectual property rights for the software to Vista Learning, which somebody needs to go claw all that back because they're making money off that.
And where were these employees located? Were they located in government offices while doing work for Vista?
Yes. And Vista Learning would reimburse the government for their time worked.
How so?
They would just cut a check for X amount of dollars each month for estimated time worked for the employees that were working with that contract.
How was that recorded in the government's books?
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head on that one, but I know that's how they used those hours worked, no matter who paid for it, as their 1,000-hour requirement for IMRF.
Yeah, so this is disgusting. I'm just so disgusted by what you've told us already. They set up this whole scheme to keep their cushy jobs as government officials, meanwhile working on the production of software that a private company that they were also directors on could then sell. And at the same time, keeping their official position. This was all a way to keep all of their government benefits and especially their pensions. Let's face it, if you've worked for the state for 20 years, you also get all those healthcare benefits paid for.
And they would get massive bonuses from the private company to the government employees. Massive bonuses. We can cover those later if you want.
Oh, boy. Did those bonuses from the private company show up in their pay to spike their pension?
I don't know that. And I'm really surprised we actually got access to those bonuses. But I don't know if they were used to spike the pensions.
You're listening to Jeanne Ives on The Real Story. I still have the Edgar County Watchdogs with me. This story gets worse the more I hear about it. We're going to turn it back over to John Kraft because he needs to explain in some detail the contract that Vista Learning had with the Professional Development Alliance This is so bad, guys. I want you to really pay attention. John, go ahead.
Okay, so we mentioned the 2017 contract earlier where they placed the PDA as a subcontractor essentially to Vista Learning. Well, Vista Learning trademarked their Evaluate software in 2013. So we know the software has been around since 2013, and incidentally, the physical address used in that trademark application was the same physical address as the Will County ROE and the PDA address. Yeah, I like that. And the company was been using that address for years. So other problems with the contract were they contracted priority work for Vista over, in our belief, over the statutory work of the Regional Office of Education. They entered into a service agreement with Vista for the nonprofit Evaluate software. The Public Officer Prohibited Activities Act prohibits interest in contracts by any person holding any office. And they can't have an interest in the name of another person, which would be this company. But obviously, these guys did have an interest because they were also, they were the ROEs, the elected ROEs, and employees of the ROEs, and they are also the directors and presidents of the Vista Learning. So there had to have been a conflict of interest in those two entities. Jay Linksman signed addendums to the contracts, and so did Walsh and Mahatko signed them, and it was an automatic contract renewal, which violates the Illinois Automatic Contract Renewal Act. And not to mention Article 8, Section 1 of the Constitution, where public funds, property, and credit can only be used for public purposes. This was obviously not a public purpose. They're going to say, oh, we're helping the teacher evaluations. Well, for private companies' profit, even though it is a nonprofit company. So that was the problems we found with the contract. Now we can move into the bonuses given to ROE PDA employees from Vista Learning. Would you like to know about those?
Yeah.
Between 2017 and 2023, Vista Learning gave more than $870,000 worth in bonuses to 6 government employees of the PDA who worked for Vista Learning under the contract. And I can run off Joe Rogers, $170,000, Steve Scranton, $171,000. Tara Ellers, $163,000, Brett Houseman, $126,000, Jason Bras, $170,000. I mean, the list goes on.
But John, the numbers that you just rattled off, the amount that they got for a bonus had to have been equal to the amount that they were getting supposedly as paid employees of the government. Or did this substitute for their pay, meaning that they were actually only employees of Vista and not government employees?
They were government employees getting bonuses paid in addition to their payroll check, and Vista Learning was paying these bonuses.
And we're not sure whether or not those bonuses were pensionable. We don't know that yet, do we?
I don't know that.
This is a really important point. You don't make a bonus of $126,000, $170,000, $150,000. You don't make those bonuses unless you're working your butt off to earn them. And you can't be working for the private company to that extent, earning that bonus that is equal to your salary as a public employee. There's just no way. So all the work they were doing were to earn those bonuses for Vista, which means these public employees are really employees of Vista.
Yeah, and their contract and addendums listed the employees by name and the percentage of work that they were going to do for Vista throughout the year. And some of them were 90, 95%. And all their payroll were IMRF qualified according to the Professional Development Alliance, which IMRF, I don't hold any trust that they'll question any of it. They just saw money coming in.
I'm just going to say it. I think they're corrupt too. Go ahead.
Yeah, they should investigate it and make sure that it was qualified.
Absolutely, they should have investigated it. Somebody needs to go to jail. Okay, sorry, John, I interrupted. Go ahead.
And next, we found that the Professional Development Alliance, through Vista Learning, which Vista Learning's all of their equipment and resources came from the government. So they were using the government email and internet access to conduct their work. And we did find out that Vista filed its first tax return in 2004. So that's how long ago that they had been in operation. But in this process, they were providing IT services to other people. and other businesses. And one of them happened to be the Majestic Isle Casino in St. John's, Antigua. And that casino was purchased by a PDA employee's husband. And they even did some kind of TV show. A Joliet couple bought a casino, and it was a TV show they made about it. But they hosted the servers and emails for the Majestic Isles Casino, and they used PDA email addresses to conduct that work between the employees and the Majestic Isle Casino, and even sent invoices to the casino from PDA email addresses. So the government was assisting an offshore casino that was routed through the State Board of Education's Learning Technology Center servers. And I've got the server name. So the State Board of Education.
Yeah, the State Board of Education is at fault too then.
Well, at some point, any large corporation, especially a government, should maybe want to figure out exactly which websites they're hosting.
Yeah, I think so. So the State Board of Education was hosting a casino, an offshore casino's website?
The emails were routed through there, so through their servers. So yes, ltc1s.k12.il.us. And that was that was back in 2013, 2015. And they also hosted a foundation, the MICfoundation.org, that was set up as part of that operation too. And Graffle, the MIC.com, Graffle.com, different things that casino was running and employee's husband was in charge of.
Okay, John, let's go quick to Kirk Allen. Kirk, tell us what the results of this report, where it's going to go, and what else is going on.
Well, it's amazing. Our first meeting, when the questions they couldn't answer, within days, they shuttered this whole operation. And within weeks, and we can't get copies of these reports because they're quote unquote still under investigation. But what we were told was office space was basically vacated. I mean, there's nobody there, no equipment, no computers, no nothing, just an empty office space. We do know that a lot of records came up missing, but there were also a whole bunch of them that they didn't get out of the Will County office or one of the Will County offices. And there's been terabytes of information that was turned over by Garrett Discovery to the FBI. And he chuckled when he contacted us. He says, there's a whole lot more to this story, because he's seen the forensic data as to what was going on. And that's always the case. It's always bigger than we ever imagined. But when all of these people start scrambling, why would you do that if there's nothing wrong, or if a government employee knows when they're doing something wrong? And to shutter this whole operation sends a great big red flag. Now, there's things we can't prove at this point, but supposedly the people that have been subpoenaed have all pled the fifth. So who knows how long this may take, if it ever, moves to prosecution. I agree that all indications are this was a very well thought out and organized plan by a select group of people that benefited grossly on this thing. But will they ever be held accountable? I don't know. I'm just reading the report that's been put out from the Will County ROE. I mean, it's shocking, but it covers all of the details from start to finish. And it includes all the footnotes, all the links to evidence, multiple sources of information in public records. I mean, just our work accounted for over 25 footnotes in that report. They even have a whole section dedicated to the apparent cover-up of the operation. So, people resign, they scatter. I mean, it's a typical, oh, crap, we've been caught. What do we do?
Okay, so thanks a lot, guys, for bringing this story to light. We're going to post the report from the Will County Regional Offices of Superintendent, this report that Dr. Lisa Caparelli-Ruff put out. We thank her for doing good work here. And then the job of everybody else, though, who's listening to this is to read that report. And again, we'll keep this story alive. We'll keep covering it as new details come out. But people should start by reading the report. Really important to do that. This is Jeanne Ives with The Real Story. And we still have the Watchdogs with us because we took a little bit longer time with them. There's so much to cover. And Kirk, you had an additional story that is kind of a follow-up. We've been covering this before, but I want you to give us a little bit more details on the Oakland Fire Protection District trustee.
Yeah, we finally saw some justice. Two of the trustees had been indicted, and one pled guilty. His father has now been scheduled for a trial. I mean, it was a family trio. The one trustee, his wife, and the guy's father were the Oakland Fire Protection District trustees. And we finally got a hard number of what they've been able to prove was stolen. Now, we did find out there was probably more, but they couldn't get the records. I was told some of those were insurance records. How ironic, he was the insurance agent for the fire department, so it's not a surprise that those records are mysteriously missing. But that one gentleman, Kylie Willison, has now been sentenced. Theft of over $236,661 to a little fire protection district in Oakland, Illinois. And sadly, he's not going to jail.
What?
He's not going to jail. They provided a stay on the jail time. He's paying restitution, $100,000 by June 16th, another $50,000 by August 16th, and another $50,000 by October 16th of this year. The remaining balance is to be paid out over his 4 years of probation.
This is just ridiculous. Okay, I mean, a population of Oakland, Illinois, super small town, a village, I don't know, a hamlet might be more appropriate. I mean, there's less than 800 people in Oakland, Illinois. The guy steals, over $200,000, and he's not going to jail. I hope they run him out of town.
Ironically, there's people up there that are defending him, saying that this was all blown out of proportion and he's a great guy. I mean, the people that come to the defense of these kind of folks is mind-boggling. But the sad part of this, now his father has been scheduled for trial. Well, Kylie can now testify in his dad's trial and help his defense. My dad had nothing to do with it. This was all me. That's why I pled guilty. I'm paying restitution. I was doing all the work, and I just asked him to sign those checks, and he just trusted that I was doing the people's business, and I pulled the wool over his eyes, and I'm sorry, and I've been convicted for it, but you can't convict my dad for this. That will be the defense. Mark my words.
Well, why are they not tried together? Why is the father going after the son? Do you think this was part of a deal that was made to get the father off and let the son take all the blame, knowing he was going to get a light sentence from this,
Yeah, they've got separate attorneys. So they mapped out a plan. It's being heard by two different judges. It's not being heard together, which I think they should have been doing this together. Why they separated is beyond me. And it shows you how broken the judicial system is on stuff like this. I don't believe the father will ever see an actual trial. I think they will come to some conclusion that, the time and effort to try the case, the odds of winning it are slim because he's going to blame his son for everything. And you only have to convince one juror. And I think they're banking on that. Time will tell. And I hope I'm wrong, but the guy that, clearly was in the middle of all this, he saw the processing in jail to get a mugshot. That's as much jail time as this guy will see unless he violates his probation. They did make the payments tied to his probation. So if he doesn't make the payments on the deadline, it's considered a violation of it, and he could be sent to jail between 4 and 17 years in prison. I don't see that happening. I'll be shocked if that ever does happen. Truth be known, either family members or some of the locals there have come to his aid to help him get out of this on some kind of deal. But we are finally going to get all the details to where the money was going. In the courtroom, we heard that as much, they were buying professional ball game tickets, going to professional sports events, supporting his own golf course business with fire department money. I mean, who knows what we're going to see when we finally get the records, but we're still waiting on the answer to that FOIA. They withheld those until the actual sentencing. So, yep, over $236,000 the guy stole from a little fire department.
Meanwhile, Kylie's wife was also a trustee during that time, and she apparently was never charged.
She was never charged, even though her signature's on a whole bunch of information just like the father.
Well, I mean, what do you make of it all? Well, I mean, is this just another one of your, 600 and some people that you have been able to ferret out as being corrupt and eventually, I imagine they're out of office now. Yes or no?
Well, there's a tidbit of justice, that, hey, they're out of office. They've been prosecuted, but also there's some real failures in the system, because prior to the sentencing hearing, I asked the state's attorney what the dollar figure was, and he told me, and I said, did that include all of the insurance fraud? And it was like deer in the headlights. He didn't know what I was talking about. And he says, well, that would be a private matter. No, it was insurance fraud. There's records that indicated the volunteer firefighters were getting $75,000 a year in salary, and that's how they determined the workman comp premium. Well, they're volunteers. They weren't getting paid. But if you put down they're getting paid $75,000, the insurance premium goes up, and the trustee that's the agent gets the commission off of that policy. None of that. They had none of those records. And I'm like, why not? We've seen the records. We got them through FOIA. How come that isn't part of this? That was a failure on the side of the police investigation, in my opinion, because not one time did a single officer contact us to find out what information we had and could provide assistance in that process. We never got a single phone call, and we're the ones that broke the story.
Okay, that trustee that was also the insurance agent, are they also a family member?
Yeah. There's 3 trustees. The insurance agent, Kylie, is the one that just got sentenced.
Oh, okay. So that was also part of Kylie's deal. So he was also an insurance agent.
Yep.
Got it. Well, I mean, all in the family down there. All right. Okay. That's all that we have time for tonight. I want to thank the Watchdogs for coming on this Memorial Day weekend. Really appreciate your stories. Really appreciate your work. You are, the best patriots in all of Illinois.
Thanks for having us, Jeannie.
You can follow the Edgar County Watchdogs on their website, illinoisleaks.com. illinoisleaks.com.